Hey, how's it going? So here you find me in front of Lviv train station. I'm on my way to discover a new Ukrainian city. Well, not new in terms of Ukrainian standards. It's been there for many, many hundreds of years. New for me, I've never been there before. The city is called Khmelnytskyi.
Welcome to Khmelnytskyi!
Some of the most brutal wars went on. Hundreds of thousands of people died. And I think anyone that's classed as a dissident by the ruling oppressors is a good man in my books. He fought for an independent Ukraine and he eventually, of course, got it. Hopefully, by the time I've finished my tour of Khmelnytskyi, we will all know how to pronounce it, and we'll have asked a few locals how to pronounce it properly. But join me as I explore this wonderful Ukrainian city that is reachable via train. It's going to take me about 3 hours from Lviv to get there over the next 2 days. Well, a very delayed train journey later, extremely delayed, I find myself in this very kitsch hotel, very reasonably priced, roughly about 750 hryvnias a night. My journey will begin tomorrow. I'm going to be exploring the wonderful city. Just a quick tour of a 750 hryvnia room. We got the nice sink, big sink this time, very big sink, standard shower, toilet, green decor. Can't really go wrong with a bit of green decor. The shower seems to be in reasonable condition. Nice big television. They love their big TVs over here. You can't really avoid them. Loving the brown furniture. We have no balcony. It's ground floor, but a nice large bed. Yeah, this will suit nicely. I think I'll be able to do some editing on this table, a little bit of work. Something you don't always get in some rooms, so a little bit of work and touring this city. So join me. My little hotel on the edge of Khmelnytskyi. A little bit cold last night, and freezing in fact. But I slept well. So now begins my tour of Khmelnytskyi. A little bit concerning. I was on TripAdvisor this morning. I was just trying to establish what's there to see in Khmelnytskyi. Turns out there's less than 10 things in the whole region, and most of these things are sort of 20 to 24 kilometers away from Khmelnytskyi. There's about 3 or 4 things listed on TripAdvisor. Now this could be because TripAdvisor is not very well used in this town. TripAdvisor isn't the go-to in every place you visit in the world. Sometimes it just doesn't work. I think this is exactly the reason we're here today. We're here to discover this quaint little town, this town home to numerous Ukrainians. Let's just see what it has to offer. Hello and a big welcome to you. I am Alex, and if you have not watched this channel before, I am the Wandering Englishman. And if you have watched this channel before, welcome back. It's great to see you again, or at least appreciate that you're there. I think the way you say this town, it's pronounced with an H, so it's Khmelnytskyi. However, many people in the comments below, I'm sure, will correct me, but I do believe it is Khmelnytskyi. So we begin in this square, which I believe is Independence Square. And what we see over here, it looks like the ruins of an old Soviet statue. We've got the Ukrainian flag flying over it, and we also have the right sector flag to the side. We've spoken about this many, many times. Flames in the sky symbolizes the red of the flag, and the black symbolizes the sort of the ashes, because we're constantly at war. But I believe, I could be wrong, but maybe there was a Soviet individual here who went by the name of Vladimir Lenin, possibly. But now what we have behind us, we've got what looks like the 100 plus that gave their lives at Maidan, helping Ukrainian independence. And we have a little bit windy, so if it is windy, I'm going to cut off this beautiful statue. And like every single day, what's nice about this part of Ukraine, you don't get the cloudy weather systems that you will often get in the United Kingdom. We often have blue skies. Chilly days, especially at night time, because there's no cloud cover to keep the heat in. But we have these beautiful blue sky days. And it's almost symbolic of why the Ukrainian flag is yellow cornfields and blue on the top, because it is also often blue skies. I have to admit, this is one of the finest statues I've seen in a long time. For once, government has done well. All of these buildings that you see around Independence Square are government buildings, and in a way, it just shows the fact that Ukrainian government ministers still have taste, because they're not importing all this crappy modern art that the West seems intent on importing and causing the destruction of their society. They want beautiful things for the people to look at, and this, I can imagine, will last a long, long time. Very, very beautiful statue. Unlike some of the statues that are going up in the United Kingdom right now, the latest one being a random person holding a mobile phone while dressed in a tracksuit. What that's trying to celebrate or trying to tell the people of the United Kingdom, I'm not sure. But at least here, you have things people can look up and think, wow, I feel proud to be Ukrainian. I feel proud to live here, despite the fact that maybe there might not be many things listed on TripAdvisor yet. Now, I tried my best to do as much research on the lost Lenin statues of Khmelnytsky as possible, but there isn't that much left on Google. I discovered where the beautiful statue was is where Lenin used to stand in this square, and in another part of Khmelnytsky there was also another Lenin statue. I have to admit, I wasn't able to find out what was where I assumed Lenin used to be. I still do not know. If anyone knows, please let me know in the comments. And of course, these men and women are the brave individuals who lost their lives fighting for the independence of Ukraine. Hence, they are remembered here. And as we walk down this, I guess what we would call a promenade with these fascinating benches back there, we see the reason Khmelnytsky is called what it is. This town didn't used to be called Khmelnytskyi. This town changed its name. I think it was in the 1950s, but I could be mistaken here. And it was named after this great man, who Ukrainians considered to be an incredibly great man. He was born in the late 16th century, I think around about 1590 something, 1594 maybe. And he died, I think it's around about 1650s or something. Excuse my inaccuracies there, but this is Bohdan Khmelnytsky. You may have seen from my previous videos where I talk about this chap. He's loved by Ukrainians, he's loved by those that seek independence, and he's loved by those that believe in the nation of Ukraine. He was actually born in what is now Lithuania, Hungary. He came from a bit of an aristocratic family, but despite coming from an aristocratic family, he joined up with the Cossacks, and then eventually became the leader of the Cossacks. And the Cossacks were a sort of rabble of people that defied the establishment, that defied those that want to keep people as serfs. They were free men, they were free warriors. They made the Ottomans incredibly fearful, but the Lithuanian, Hungarian, Poles couldn't control the Cossacks because the Cossacks wanted their own country, they wanted their own independence. And by the time this man reached the end of his days, with all the wars that took place and the uprisings, effectively everything east of the Dnieper River was independent Ukraine, whereas everything left was, I guess, what you would define as Poland, or at least was in squabbling territory. There was a lot of squabbles. The conflict that went on back in those centuries is fascinating. Some of the most brutal wars went on. Hundreds of thousands of people died, hundreds of thousands of peasants and innocents died in the conflicts, and Cossacks that look like this man. This is a great statue to him, and also the reason that this town is called Khmelnytskyi. As we're walking through this market that is partly covered by a corrugated iron roof, I'll give you a little bit of a background on this fine city of Khmelnytskyi. The current population is estimated to be around 275,000 beautiful souls, making it slightly smaller than Vinnytsia, a city you may be familiar with if you saw my video on the Viacheslav Market recently. Although Ukrainians will have to forgive me, because the way I say it apparently sounds like Venice, Italy to a Ukrainian. I keep trying, but pronouncing some of these words and names is still a struggle to this Englishman who can't roll his R's. There's thought to have been a settlement on this land since at least 2000 BC, dating back to the Bronze Age. But in fact, given how little we know about human civilization before this, it would not be a surprise if settlements were here even before that. However, like many places in this region, due to thousands of years of atrocities and meandering warlords from distant lands, the first known mention in historical records only dates back to 1431, when it was known as Proskurov, which was part of the Kingdom of Poland. Polish rule was interrupted by Ottoman rule in the 17th century. After this, the city was annexed by the Russian Empire. In 1920, it became part of the Soviet Union. Of course, once the Soviet Union collapsed, the city, along with the rest of Ukraine, became Ukraine. One thing you will notice straight away about this city is how homogeneous ethnically this city is. 97% of the city is thought to be Ukrainian and 3% is Russian. Outsiders well and truly stand out, but in my mind this makes it special as it retains its identity.
You can pretty much buy everything here, even something to milk your cow. Quite amazing. For the milk, really amazing. It's interesting, I wasn't even going to come this way. I was trying to get to the other side of these railway lines, because on the other side there's a monument to, well, a lot of people that lost their lives, a Jewish monument. And I thought it'd be respectful to head that way, and even though the monument's out of the way, to go check it out. But on the way, discover this maze of markets, which wasn't on the map. I wouldn't have noticed it. I mean, who needs a supermarket? You come here, you get everything. Bike tires. Ventilation. Tools for your toolkit. And this is the railway I wanted to get across. To cross the railway, I got to cross this. Try not to get run over. Here we go. Heading this way. And you can see that this is not the glitziness that you see in places like Kiev and Odessa or even Lviv. There's a lot of poverty here. If you're a babushka and you have to sell your wares by the side of a railway track, life isn't too good. Life isn't too good. But at least it's sunny. Over here we have people selling animals out of the car. We have rabbits being sold. I'm pretty sure these rabbits aren't pets. Maybe the odd one might be lucky enough to end up as a pet, but I think most of these are probably going to be lunch. This, I believe, is predominantly a Jewish cemetery. You can see the Star of David over there, but also maybe there's some locals here. The reason to cross those railway tracks and to kind of come to the edge of Khmelnytskyi, the city, is to remember that the town used to be called Proskurov, and the Proskurov program is probably the reason many of these graves are here. Effectively back in 1919, as the Bolsheviks came to power in this region, over 1,500 Jews were massacred, possibly where we are now, possibly where the monument is, which we're about to see. An atrocity probably not seen since the 17th century. The irony is this town is called Khmelnytskyi, and Khmelnytsky was responsible for the massacring of Jews and the outcasting of them from the area he was commanding. So Stalin obviously changed the name in 1954 from Proskurov to Khmelnytskyi, not to sort of whitewash history or anything, but simply to celebrate a Ukrainian he deemed worthy of celebration. But what happened here in 1919 is something that many of us can't even envision. The soldiers who were shooting the Jews were told to save their ammunition. They started slashing them, they started using bayonets. There was an atrocity that we could not comprehend, but it's an atrocity that, just like all atrocities, we need to remember. And it doesn't matter which race of people you are, it doesn't matter what religion you are. The violence against human beings like that is something that should never be tolerated. And it's why there's a monument I think we're approaching right now to remember them. And here we see, not only just in Ukrainian, but also in Hebrew, the grave with the Star of David, and this is to remember those that were massacred. Not the greatest location for a monument, but maybe this is exactly where it happened, and this is horrible to think it happened here. And now there's this ghastly tower block here, and we're on a busy roadside, and the graves are up there. I think we need to sort of remember that humans can turn on each other very quickly, and they certainly turned on each other in 1919. This seems to suggest this is a mass grave, this is a communal grave, and the number they're suggesting here is 1600. The number that I've been reading about is between 1400 and 1700. So when I said 1500 earlier, they're saying 1600. I don't think anyone truly knows. How can you? How can you know? On the 15th of February 1919, a Jewish pogrom took place in Proskuriv. Old men, women, children were killed. At that awful time, Archdeacon Khmelnytskyi, who was killed by the Cossacks, the officiate of the district, the law court Bienko, who perished together with the Jews that he had hidden. Okay, so there was a man hiding the Jews. Dr. Polozov, a member of the city of Duma, who called to stop this carnage for Ukraine's honor's sake, stood up in defiance of these innocent people. And back through the market we head.
I have a mixed bag of viewers, as you'd expect, due to publishing my videos in English. Some of my greatest subscribers are based all over the world, and I know some of my subscribers are Jewish. Now, while I'm not Jewish, I do understand the animosity some Jews might have for the Ukrainians' past, but I really wish it wasn't like that. The English don't hate on the Germans or the French despite our brutal history. If anything, and I do speak from my perspective, we have so much we can find in common. I don't want people in the comments speaking with vitriol about each other's nations. It sometimes happens in my videos. You only have to watch my video on Belgrade, Serbia to witness the comment section there. The Ukrainian people have been through so much pain and suffering over the years, and in my mind are rising from the ashes, are not the people of the past, just like you wouldn't scream and shout at Berliners as you stood outside Bergheim. Be the techno crowd and find the common ground. It's the leaders and the technocrats of the world we should spit vitriol at.
In this random estate is where I've had to come to find this bizarre statue. I don't know if you will recognize this yet, but he was a man that liked to tell tall tales. Well, the original person based on this character, because effectively this can you guess who it is yet? It's Baron Munchausen. And what an elaborate, interesting monument or statue to him. We have the horse, half a horse, where a fountain should be. There should be spouting water, and here we have what should be a pool of water and a nice sort of area to sit, but it's clearly seen better days, and it's in just behind this residential block that we see this monument to Baron Munchausen. Now, if you're not familiar with Baron Munchausen, I urge you to check out the Terry Gilliam film. Terry Gilliam is one of the ex-Monty Python guys. I think it was made around 1989, and the Baron Munchausen film It's an elaborate film. It's a fun film. It will certainly tickle a few ribs if you don't take it too seriously. Like all of Guillaume's work, a little bit out there, a little bit crazy. But the original man, Baron Munchausen, was a real person who went to fight for the Russian army, and he had adventures in Russia. And maybe one of those adventures was in Khmelnytskyi. Maybe this is the reason he's here. Maybe someone in the comments can tell me if he was actually connected to this town, or it was maybe just a fanboy, lives around the corner. I'm not sure. But the Baron Munchausen stories sort of play on the fact that the Baron used to tell tall stories, and those tall stories, though not lies, were elaborate. Those stories made people laugh. Then someone took those stories and wrote the adventures of Baron Munchausen. I think he was German. He fled from Germany to eventually settle in England. Although strangely his stories are more well known in continental Europe than in the rest of the world. A lot of people are very fond of the Baron Munchausen stories. I mean, supposedly one of the stories, he went to the moon, he used to battle huge crocodiles, and he saw some of the most strange things. And he's a person after my own heart, really, because he was a traveller. And the fact that he travels around this region, certainly Russia and the old Soviet Union, though I may never will ever be as rich as the Baron was.
Wait, stop! Don't go! Come back! There's more! There's more!
Well, there's a clear message there in neon, isn't there? Apparently this is the second best thing to see in Khmelnytskyi. It's a mall. The second best thing, imagine that. Not a museum, not a art gallery, but a mall. I won't bother, to be honest. I've seen enough malls. I'm gonna have my lunch. Thank you to my members, by the way. The fact that you donate allows me to have lunch just like this, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much. This seems to be the main promenade of Khmelnytskyi. I was here last night. I ended up in some strange little nightclub called Lux. I think I lasted one drink before I needed to leave.
Хотел бы обратить внимание, у нас появился фотограф сегодня. Самый лучший, самый крутой во всей любимой Украине. Привет!
But let's see if we can find a museum. If you haven't clicked that subscribe button already, maybe I can tempt you this time. It really might help this channel grow, and I honestly will really appreciate it. This is Taras Shevchenko's square. More on Taras Shevchenko later in the video, so stay tuned for that. I think this old theatre has seen better days. Actually, it's a cinema, I believe. Yeah, definitely a cinema. If you would like to support my work, you can become a channel member by simply clicking the join button below this video. Or if you would prefer to use Patreon, Subscribestar, Pledsto or Ko-fi, all of these work. And to double the grifting, I also accept crypto. I always post offers in the description below, and I stand by all of these offers should you care to help yourself. There will be more nightlife later in the video. Before then, I really wanted to take in some culture in the form of art. This art gallery is the Khmelnytskyi Regional Museum of Art. And I kid you not, I was the first visitor of the day, even though it was a Saturday. You know, you're one of the few tourists in this town when the #1 tourist attraction here is this art gallery. And they have to turn the lights on for you because no one's been here, and it's close to 1 o'clock now. On a Saturday, you'd expect a lot of people to be here on a Saturday, given that it's a very important art gallery, but it is just I and the two babushkas at the entrance.
See that? Very kind. They've just turned all the lights on for me. It's nice having a museum to yourself and 3 babushkas. This part of Ukraine is in desperate need of more visitors, but it's probably why the more I took in, the more I started to like this place. Wow. Look at this. Beautiful, beautiful room. Beautiful. This building used to be a bank in the early 20th century. I believe all of the art in this museum is Ukrainian. If you saw my video asking Ukrainians if Russia will invade, 2 of the men featured in that video were workers at this museum. Like I say, every room to myself. And it really was a shame because I went back to this art gallery for a second time on a second occasion and it was just as empty. I think I was the only person who had visited that day also. So I really hope that the locals and people from outside Khmelnytskyi do get a chance to visit this place. So we're going to head out of the city centre, but obviously no city would be complete without the I love Khmelnytskyi. I think this is a Zoom, this is a shopping centre, craft beer place over there. The art gallery that you just saw was 30 hryvnias. 30 hryvnias to have 3 babushkas turning the lights on for me was quite pleasant, really. Now I'm going to head slightly towards the other side of the city, where we're going to head eventually to, I think, one of the monuments to remember those brave soldiers who lost their lives during the First and Second World Wars. So let's go check all that out, and hopefully we're going to see a few things along the way. I could be in Paris, but no, I'm still here. Maybe it's an advert for Paris. The monument that you just saw there, well, not a monument, it was actually an advert for Paris. When I pressed the QR code, it gave me a little bit of historical information when it came to Paris. But right here.
Hello,
Hello. Hello.
Excuse me, what is your name?
Alexander.
Alexander?
Yeah.
Вы русский понимаете?
A little, very.
Откуда вы? Я же British, American.
British,
British,
yeah.
да?
Yeah.
Окей, вы с корреспондент или с... Я English не очень хорошо.
That's okay.
Я монах, Владимир. Я Донецка, Донбасс.
From the Donetsk.
Russian Putin, дурак.
Yeah, crazy.
Стреляют, он, брат. У меня нога, он поранення.
Wow.
Russian Putin, дурак, стреляют.
Are you okay?
Меня нема за что жить, я кушать хочу.
I can give you something.
Поможить немножко, брат.
Yeah.
Ага. Я кушать хочу. Окей, ага. Немножко, ага. Окей, брат.
And do you live here now?
Я молюсь из Архангела, да.
Yeah?
Мы православие у нас. Ага.
Православие.
Ну, это памятник чернобыльцам или репрессии, я не знаю. Просто поставили, я молюсь.
This is the victims of violence. Yeah.
Окей,
yeah.
окей, ага.
I will. Pleasure meeting you.
Окей,
take
брат,
it.
дякую, ага, дякую.
And that's where I wish my Ukrainian or Russian, speaking Russian, would be better served. I understand more than I can speak. I can't really converse very well these days. I understand, obviously he was from the Donetsk and he'd been forced out of the Donetsk. He now was living over here. But this monument symbolizes the victims of violence for all nationalities, all religions, and what a beautiful, beautiful monument. Could be the angel Gabriel, could be just any angel. I'm not sure, but this is a beautiful monument and a nice little place. I love the fact that it's got 2 beautiful willow trees side by side. Beautiful, beautiful monument.
another square. This square is called Pioneer Square, and I think it remembers the fallen. And I think there's a nice statue here we can check out, or a monument, however you want to define it. Sometimes with the sunshine, it's difficult to see what it is, but it looks like a brave man waving the flag, remembering his fallen comrades. Or not comrades, it's fallen men. One thing I've noticed about this city, it's very, very spread out. Where the main train station came in last night is a long distance away from the center. And it's set out in a sort of grid fashion. There's no real old town. I think what we see here is the effects of probably decimation during the Second World War. Obviously built in a communist type grid fashion when it was rebuilt.
This is Ivan Franko Park, the Ivan Franko statue you can see there just up ahead. What I want you to notice is the difference between right now and later in the video. The park seems empty right now, but later it's going to be very, very busy.
This is the Khmelnytskyi Stadium. There's a sign on the Ivan Franko Park, which we just came from, that speaks very fondly of this stadium. Apparently in 1980, the Olympic torch passed through here from Athens on the way to Moscow for the Olympics, which was obviously being held in Moscow, and it stopped here and was a flame ceremony and all the townsfolk came out. It's had a bit of a renovation since then, but still pretty minor stadium. Even the Cambridge United Stadium is probably bigger than this in terms of capacity. Open to all. I just walked in, no problems. I came through that gate. A place you can do a little bit of running if you fancy it. I could be completely wrong, but this could be one of the places where a Lenin statue or a Stalin statue was removed. I know in Khmelnytskyi there was a Lenin statue removed, and maybe the fact that this clearly used to be something, and since then they've got independent Ukraine imagery on it, although it says 2002, so it does make me wonder. If anyone knows what this used to be, it's almost like something definitely was here. I don't think this is how it used to be. This is new, this is old. Did Lenin or some communist used to stand here? I'd really love to know. I've just been doing a Google and I can't find information on this. So if anyone knows, it's one of the reasons I make these videos, to learn a bit more after I've been here. I really do try to do the legwork for you guys, but also mostly for myself, because I seriously always want to dissect these cities. I'm moving to the north side of the city now, some 2 miles I've got to walk, and I will get to the Eternal Flame and the Motherland Monument. It seems every Ukrainian city, every Soviet city has to have one, and rightly so. Let's turn the camera off. 35-40 minutes to get there. Beautiful blue skies. We always need the exercise. Keeps us fit, keeps us young. Who needs marushkas, taxis, when we still have our feet? We get to take in what the locals see every day. Well, on a very, very noisy intersection, huge roundabout over there, we make it. A little bit windy.
Khmelnytskyi was occupied by the German forces from July 8, 1941 to March 25, 1944.
The flag gives you some idea of how blustery it is. Proskurov, now Khmelnytskyi, suffered under occupation from the Nazis between 1941 and 1944. Brave men from the Soviet side eventually pushed the Nazis out of here in 1944, but to the cost of hundreds of thousands of lives were lost here. The massacre that we saw from 1919 with the Jews almost pales in comparison to the numbers that were lost during the Second World War. Prisoners were executed. Prisoners were actually executed when the Soviets came in. So all the political prisoners that came in, something like 70% of the prison population were Ukrainians. They were executed. 20% from elsewhere and 10% were Jews. But on top of that, this town used to have streets much closer together. There was a lot of shelling, there was a lot of bombing. The average person lost their life. And it's why heroes that came through are celebrated like this. Now, it's unfortunate that the Soviets then repressed the Ukrainians in the following years, but at the same time, we can be thankful for pushing them out. War is never good. Lives are lost on both sides. At least this monument remembers them. It's kind of fitting that there's this beautiful park just behind the memorial to commemorate the fallen from the Second World War. This really is the edge of the town. I've attempted to go to a couple of museums today, all closed. I'm not sure why that is. Well, actually, I kind of have a clue why this is. We've just entered the red zone when it comes to this whole COVID pandemic thing. Even a lot of the restaurants are closed. They've got tape all over them. Clearly, the museums are closed. The rule is, if everyone's vaccinated, then the museum can be open. But I'm guessing that the museums that are closed probably have workers that choose not to get the jab. We don't call it the V word, we call it the jab. And you know my views on that one. I must say, what a beautiful park. Leaves on the ground. It's rare that you see parks like this. Most of the time a park will have manicured lawns, and this is making use of what they had previously. If you were to head north away from the city, the forests get very much tighter, almost similar to the trees that you see over here. But this is beautiful. This really is beautiful. I'm trying to get to one of the few museums that seems to be open today, but this is Khmelnytskyi Polytechnic University. I don't know if it's good or bad, but that's the university. We've got a bit of construction going on, and it looks like they play rugby here. There's some rugby poles over there. Do the Khmelnytskys, is that how you refer to the people here? Do they play rugby here? I'll try and ask someone tonight. I'm here for another night. Hopefully I won't end up in Lux nightclub, but I will certainly try and find out if people play rugby here. Sadly, COVID has caused this country to shut down once again. The Military Panoramic Museum, I think there's basically a display in this interesting Soviet block or building, however you'd like to describe it. But I believe it's a sort of display of military might, of military history, but not today. Thank you, NWO. Thank you very much. I find myself back in the centre because we've closed museums. We must find history on the streets. This fine-looking individual is not Albert Einstein. This is Viacheslav Chornovil. Not Chernobyl, but Chernobyl. He was a journalist back in the day, and he studied journalism in Kiev, but he was effectively classed by the Soviet regime as a dissident for his publications on the atrocities of the Soviet Union and all the tyranny that they were involved in. And I think anyone that's classed as a dissident by the ruling oppressors is a good man in my books. He fought for an independent Ukraine, and he eventually, of course, got it. Once he found himself back in Ukraine, he became a Ukrainian politician. I think it was the Independence Party that was fighting for Ukrainian independence. And obviously we know Ukraine has had over 30 years of independence. And this says, without you, there is no Ukraine, I think. I think that's what it says. but he was considered a great man in this part of the world, a bit of a hero. A bit of a conspiracy theory here. He died in a car accident in 1999 with his assistant. Thinking is he was assassinated by those that he'd wronged or those that he'd exposed. Many people wanted him dead, and the car accident was investigated. Some suggest that it was a murder. Some suggest it was just a natural car accident. Nobody really knows. Similar to a lot of people connected with Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, if you wrong them, you end up in a car accident, you end up having a suspicious accident. The secret in life is don't wrong very, very bad people. You end up having these sort of accidents. This is how the world is. A celebrated man here and a much loved man here. Beautiful, beautiful. I find myself back in the center because when the museums are closed, we have to find history on the streets, and this certainly is a bit of a historical man. I believe this says the heavenly heroes. I don't know what this word is. If someone can help me, heavenly heroes, let me know in the comments. I'd love to know. But this is a new monument. Maybe it sort of celebrates those that gave their lives, or maybe just people who've given their lives generally. Beautiful modern soldier, a modern soldier with modern boots, modern weaponry. I think this is supposed to represent all fallen soldiers of the recent era since Afghanistan. Maybe just Afghanistan itself. Quite an impressive monument. Favourite with the local scooter gang. They love it. Yeah, very beautiful monument. Very nice. What Ukraine video would be complete without a monument to Taras Shevchenko? There are almost 1,400 monuments devoted to this great man, the writer, the poet, the nationalist, the person I've spoken about hundreds and hundreds of times now. Not quite that many, but it certainly feels like that many. In one of his poems, he said, "Bury me in Ukraine." He's been certainly remembered. Ukraine has a fondness for him. There's 1,256 statues or monuments dedicated to this great man. A university dedicated to him, streets dedicated to him. I'm sure there's restaurants dedicated to him also. He clearly is something very, very special to the Ukrainian people. And in a way, with all my travels around Ukraine, I'm growing deeply fond of him. The more I read about him, the more I like him. A great man who at the age of 47 achieved huge, huge amounts. If anyone can achieve as much as this man did in his life and be remembered for as long as he has been remembered so far, you've done a good job in life.
Ну то ви казали вам сахару, то дали, то чого тут?
So I find myself the next day after a incredibly fun night in the city. I'm now walking to the station to my next destination, and I have to say this city really impressed me. What's interesting, Ivano Franko Park, a lot of locals selling their medals, selling coins, stamps, some selling because they need the money, but some selling some really interesting things. Obviously this goes on every Sunday. The fringes seem to be just people just having to sell things, similar to what we saw at the railway tracks. The tables, obviously they're here a lot. Stalin memorabilia, Lenin memorabilia, pretty much untouched. This is your thing. I want to sound enthusiastic, but really struggling because I'm so hungover. But if you were into your antiques, I think you'd probably find a few bargains here. That's right.
30.
One size.
Ну померяйте. Да, одевай.
Okay. 30. Fantastic. Спасибо. Thank you.
Носите нам так.
Дякую. How about that? A new cap for this Englishman. 30 grivnas from the babushka. What do you think? Better than this one? Well, as I walk back to the Khmelnytskyi central station along the railway tracks, I realise this is a town that feels very much like the real Ukraine. It hasn't been tarnished by mass tourism, it hasn't been tarnished by international students. If you really want to see the grittiness and the rawness of Ukraine, then this is a town that is worth checking out. Now, don't come expecting glamorous cathedrals and glamorous monuments and places that tick all the boxes for tourists. Come expecting to see how Ukrainians in the provincial cities live. Some are struggling and some are not struggling. It's a real eye-opener seeing so many people having to sell their wares and their tears by the stations, by the train tracks in fact. I think a little bit less windy now. But as I was saying, if you really want to feel the rawness of a provincial city, then this place is certainly worth checking out. As you can see, it's not that pretty. It really isn't that pretty. Parts of the centre tick a few boxes when it comes to prettiness. It's not going to win any prizes on that fact, but if you really want to experience genuine hospitality from Ukrainian people, genuine friendliness, despite language barriers, I was still able to coerce with people. Everyone I had a conversation with was delightful. Everyone was super friendly. I want to thank you for joining me today. This has been me touring around Khmelnytskyi. As always, click that like button if you liked it. If you didn't like it, double tap that dislike button. If you haven't subscribed yet, click the subscribe button. It really helps me out. It helps my videos get shown to more people. The algorithm does not like my content because of my slightly controversial political views. But if you're able to support my work, click the join button below. Honestly, leave a comment. I love reading the comments, the negatives, the positives. I love learning something. One of the reasons I continue doing these videos is because I get to learn more and more from my viewers. My viewers leave a real barrel load of information below. Check out the comments below because someone undoubtedly would have left a wonderful comment informing me that I was wrong on this part or right on this part, or giving me a little bit of extra information. And I love that. Until the next video, I want to thank you for joining me. Keep progressing and yeah, I'll see you next time.